Okay, Sis Lufun.
Yes, thank you. Mine would come a bit lower in terms of the concerns that I have. Yesterday, for me, it was heartbreaking to find most of us as from national departments, even say municipalities. I missed the legislatures because I had other commitments. But the way the time was allocated and the way time was managed, that was a huge cause for concern for me. Because how you allocate time, it shows how you have prioritized. Mr. Dantile complained that us as government, we are not implementing multilingualism. But we come here as National Language Forum, as implementers. We are given so little time. It's like, hey, it's those kids that go play out there. We have important people here. We couldn't even learn from each other. I could see how I could collaborate with a lot of people, but none of us really presented what we really wanted to present. Maybe even the fact that some of the templates we got maybe a day or two before, I got a call to say, are you going to present a day before? And I raised my concern and I said, I'll raise it here, that we cannot take the National Language Forum seriously if we don't even take the planning serious. Because you cannot expect me to present when you didn't even tell me you need to present on these matters. That is very much a cause for concern for me. And I think in that, I'm talking NLS, it's my home. That's where I grew up. So I'm not saying it because I want to appear whatever. I want this field to grow, to be professionalized. And if we are talking about South African Language Practitioners Council, it's about professionalizing this field. And we cannot start by professionalizing something. We have to internalize this behavior. And our code of conduct should show that we respect our field, we respect this forum. Because I feel I'm robbed from learning from other people. I feel I'm robbed from collaborating in a meaningful way. The other thing that I want to raise is the coordination between PENSAB and NLS. The report that I had, I could actually cut and paste from what I submitted to PENSAB. So I need to know, what is it that we are trying to get to from NLS, from Arts and Culture, DSEC. I grew up from Arts and Culture, DSEC, and PENSAB. Is there going to be a coordination? What are you going to do with this report? Because it's defeating to just two things that you think maybe is just going to be a tick of your checklist. So I'm not happy about that, and I'm not excluding myself on this. I'm part of this field. I want us to take it forward. I think the other things I just want to mention, when in our departments, when we recruit, when we have people even from other national departments, I'm concerned because there's no standardization. The way you would interview, you find a lot of people don't even know what is a style guide. Whereas that is a standard that should guide the writing, the editing, the translation within the organization. And if we cannot even standardize the way we work, how are we going to really assess people fairly? Because my heart breaks. Maybe I see somebody from another province and I've worked with them before, but I ask them, the style guide, how do you check quality of your work and others? And you find they know nothing. And your heart is breaking. You know the person, you know they can work, but you cannot be unfair to those who have the skill. Let's standardize this. I advocate for standardization of our work, and let's respect the standards. And I wish one day there will be awareness on the standards that are there in the language field, because there are quite a lot, but we are not aware and we don't use them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sis Lufuno. And I want to say that was the last hand. And your point is not at a lower level because it's going straight to the coordination. We've discussed the content part of the forum. Now that goes to coordination that also affects the outcome of this platform. You know, as government, we sometimes find ourselves under pressure to achieve everything with legal resources. But in my school of thought, with the legal resource you have, try to make sure that what you achieve with that legal resource is quality and it's got impact. As legally as it could be, but if it's got impact and it's quality, you will be able to go to the next step next time. Because we wanted to have everyone here, and obviously that was not possible, to have everyone here and then still grant quality time to all the presenters here. And then now it goes back now to actually defeat the same purpose of organizing this particular event. So that is being thrown to us as organizers, that let's please sometimes be brave enough to say to the authorities, this is the little we can achieve with this resource. So that otherwise we'll have everybody here and not achieve anything. You rather do little and then have impact that you can measure than trying to do everything and not achieve anything. So please, organizers, let's be brave about that one. You cannot achieve everything at once. You cannot have all the enterprises here and all the departments here over one day and then expect quality reporting. Let's take that as coordinators. Let's take that and then let's just stand for it when we are being lambasted as to why only, because you know in government and politics, they will say, why departments and not enterprises? Why this and not that? Those are politics. But we as officials, we must be prepared to respond to those political questions. We must be able to respond to those political questions. So please, we're taking note of that, Sis Lufuno, very much so. And then, again, I'm not sure if Tadu Tantile is here and also Ms. Kombrek. You know, colleagues, we need to highlight the thin line or the gray line that is between PenSALP and DSEC. We've been trying that, but because of change of leadership, we'll try to highlight that thin line. And then when the new leadership comes in, and then that thin line becomes gray again. We end up repeating, because now you are asked by DSEC to submit a report on UOLA. PenSALP is doing exactly the same, asking for the same UOLA reports to the departments. Then what do you expect departments to do? You are confusing them. And then you are actually now encouraging them. You know, if you come to me and request something, I say that you don't know what you're really doing. You are wasting my time. And then I won't really take you serious. So I've been into that situation before also. And then I will be straight to say, I'm no longer going to entertain this. I don't have time for this. I've done it. I'm not going to do it again. You know, so that's what now, so now we're now forcing departments and enterprises who have arrogance against this same exercise now if we're doing it like this. Those two leaders that I've just mentioned now, they must meet and then highlight that gray line between DSEC and PenSALP so that we don't confuse our stakeholders. Please, when I was there, I've tried that and then we progressed, but I can see that, okay, let me leave it there. But whatever I say, I always make sure that I will stand for it. That's me. Okay. Colleagues, we're done with discussions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have taken note of those discussions, and then we will summarize them accordingly and then share them with all of you so that you know what we have discussed here. And then now, the last point now is summation of day one by Mr. K. Sadiki. Summation of day one, then I'm done here. We go into today's program. Where is it? Okay, is that? Engos Kakula, I think, okay, yeah, okay, you come. I will take a seat for a minute.
Once more again, good morning to all of you. Good morning. Thank you. Program Director, are you here? Program Director, are you here? Thank you. Maybe as a way of starting, You know, somebody was saying to me at the end of the day yesterday, there's approximately 360 of us here, I'm not sure. Obviously, today is somebody's birthday. We can't be 360 here and we are all twins, born on the same day. I don't know the implication of that, but I suppose what that person was saying is we could have said happy birthday to anyone who is celebrating a birthday today. I suppose there are people here who are celebrating birthdays, unless if it is those that didn't come today. They didn't come because they're going to celebrate birthdays. Thank you. My role is just to sum up what we did yesterday. At the end of the day, yesterday I had about 17 slides, but I was then told just around 5 o'clock, you must adopt the KISS approach. Keep it very short and simple. So again, I summarized the summary. So I came up with very few slides. Right, and this is how it goes. We started yesterday around 9:25, and we were welcomed by the representative of the Dzong Museum and the chief director, Ms. Komrik. Once more again gave us the purpose, and she apologized on behalf of the minister and the deputy minister, who both of them were told were having pressing issues in Cape Town. She further indicated that the acting DG will join us later, which she did. In her purpose, she acknowledged the fact that people have been very busy in September, but finally acknowledged also that some languages have been lost in the process of whatever happened in our history, and the status of those languages have been reduced to dialects, unnecessarily so. Now, she emphasized the point that there was a need for us to set aside time for provinces, and that time should be allocated equitably so. Now, important for her was the fact that we should strengthen the relationship as we are here together with the research institutions, and that to intensify the campaign of languages, we need more soldiers, we need more foot soldiers on the ground. Then there was a presentation by Ndate Maketa Musala from Sanda, and the summary of his presentation was that he welcomed officially the recognition of SASAL, which he regarded as an overwhelming win for the deaf community after 29 years. Now, then we had a presentation by Prof. Ditzel. Now, he also highlighted critical issues. One, that we currently have 12 official languages. Do we think that this number will remain? Will it decrease? Will it increase? And the importance of us acknowledging and realize that there are new trends, there are new languages that are coming, and thereby he gave an example of Sipitoli and what people think, because the number of languages, the importance of languages over a period of years starting from 1652 has been fluctuating, changing, replacing this language with this one, and up to where we are now. Mr. Dantile, on behalf of PENSALP, challenged all of us with regard to the implementation of UOLA, that as government departments we are actually not complying with the Constitution. And as PENSALP, they have observed that the state is not taking practical and positive measures to elevate the status of our languages to where they're supposed to be. Then there was a presentation by Mr. Kombrick, Advancing Sasal for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And he emphasized the point that what is needed for that to be implemented, we need experts, we need standards, we need technology, and what technology can do. And he demonstrated that by two aspects. One, the app of Libitso, the Libitso app, and our Places app. What one of the colleagues was raising an issue just when we started today. Then there was an address by the acting DG, Dr. Kumalo. She shared with us some of the recent statistics, the importance and the contribution that this sector is doing to our economy. She gave a figure of about 10 billion. Now, challenged all of us on how jobs could be created in our industry. Recognition of SASAL and the policy implication that it has. Remember, as sector departments, all of us yesterday were almost complaining. SASAL now is one of the 12th official languages. It's not the 12th official language, it's one of the 12. Right? But how ready are we as government departments in terms of showing the country that we are ready? We are going to have these people working with us in the department, and that we will not continue outsourcing. Right, then there was time for government and municipal presentation. Colleagues, allow me to sum up this by the following 5 sentences, because all sector departments, all municipalities that presented here, indeed they presented on their own programs and projects. We noticed, however, that many are not compliant to UOLA. Many don't have policies, many don't have language units, and those that do have, they don't have adequate staff. They also don't have SASAL practitioners. The majority of government departments and municipalities are still outsourcing the services of sign language. But one presenter did ask a question that said, for how long? For how long are we going to continue outsourcing, whereas this language is now official? Now, the last question as raised by many presenters was a cry that goes to PENSALB to say, PENSALB, could you assist on this matter? Then there were presentation by the 3 legislatures, KZN, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. What I summarized from the 3 legislatures is that the 3 legislatures has got what one would say are well-established units of language services, one with 16 staff members, one with 14, one with 11. Now, the aggregate of the 3 provinces is that they have 12 staff members. Vis-a-vis against certain departments that only have 1 warm body or 2. Program director, maybe what people need to reflect on is, why is it that the legislatures do have well-established language service units? Is it because this is where the lawmakers are finding themselves on a daily basis. But we do have lawmakers who are heading our departments. Why are not bringing the same back to their own departments so that in their departments they have the same? Now, that then led us to almost the end of the day, but before we went home, there was a networking session which was not attended by all of us, but we're grateful that many people attended the networking session, wherein there was a presentation about the ancestral voices. Chairperson, maybe I should take this opportunity because when we were presenting as Limpopo, we didn't have an opportunity to reflect on that because our presentation was not flagged. Now, we have integrated this aspect, the project of ancestral voices, on our programs for the decade of indigenous languages. We view this as one of the most important projects. Our ancestors, we are standing on the shoulders of the giants, people who taught us how to read, how to write, our ancestors. The first person who was able to read and write in the far north subsequently landed up in Gauteng and started the Xitsonga and the Tshivenda schools. These are our ancestors. So they are pioneers in our writings. So we think, honestly, we believe that they need to be honored for the good work that they did. They laid a solid foundation. That's why today we are able to stand here and read. So they need to be honored. All right, today in the last 1 hour that we have been here, there has been talk that says, Quo Vadis, where to from here? The following has been noted. Number one, what is the impact of the program and projects that we presented yesterday? We need to reflect on that as a collective. We need to find time. The format of reporting that was sent to us appears not to be very progressive. There is a need to improve or change on that for the future. Our dictionaries, the dictionaries that we currently are using for our indigenous languages should be improved for easy reference by our language practitioners and by all. The question that has not been responded to there was by who? Who should do that? Now, the second one says that there's a need to have a centralized translators database. And this is a challenge that has been put squarely to the doors of DAC, that it is important that we should do that, and we must begin to verify the ownership of these companies that are saying they're doing work with DSEC, with provinces, or they're doing work for us. Key on this aspect is the role of SCM. Program director, when we were growing up, SCM meant something else. It meant Student Christian Movement. Today, SCM is something else. We have SCM in government. And when you want to do certain things, you're told, no, you can't. We don't do it this way, we do it this way. You want the services of a sign language translator, and then you're told you must bring 3 quotations, and it's difficult. Now, UOLA is silent on the seniority of heads of language services at government institutions. This should be looked at. perhaps when people are looking at the amendment of this act, is an issue that should be sharply raised so that it should not continue as it is. The role of government clusters, indeed we have got different clusters in government, and my thinking is that this issue falls squarely under the social cluster. But what are the different social clusters in different provinces doing about it? Are they discussing these things? Are they coordinating the implementation of UOLA? Or they are prioritizing other things, and the discussion on issues of languages is again a by-the-way issue? We have never had a language summit in this country. Prof, I must tell you, I agree with this one. I used to work for the Department of Agriculture. I can't tell you how many land summits we had. But in the last 10 years that I've joined this department, I don't remember having a language summit. It's an issue that I think colleagues at national level are actually taking this one seriously, and also considering the fact that there's a concern about the minority languages continuing to enjoy the status quo. What do we do about it? Now, going to the end, we need to look at the improvement of recruitment strategies to get the right people for the advancements of our languages. It can't be that we will always wait until such time that there will be reconfiguration or reshuffle, and somebody else who doesn't have the necessary skills and competencies will then be asked to come this side. Important also to strengthen the provincial languages committees so that they continue to give guidance to language services units or directorates in different provinces. Then we came to the almost second last issue of time allocation for presentation, which is very restrictive, that this forum is quite critical. People need to be given time to present what they've been asked to prepare. The last one. Between PENSALB and DSEC, who is who? Who are we supposed to report to? Who should take the reports? Who should coordinate? Who should we listen to? Program Director, I have come to the end of my summary. I have said to you, I moved from 17 slides to 8. Thank you.
Thank you. You took my advice that you cut your presentation to size. If you are a good presenter, you can always do that. Thank you very much. Siabuler. Yeah, just my last point. I'm very happy that I meant to make this point that we keep on saying South African Sign Language is the 12th official language. Yes, we know we don't mean that, but words they carry a lot, and they can be used to throw us off balance and direct us to the direction that we don't want to go to. It is not the 12th. It is an official language. It's one of the 12 official languages. To say it's the 12th, that means there is a first, there is a second, there is a third, there is a ninth, and then it is the 12th. It is not like that. It is just an official language, one of the 12 official languages. So let us please try to use words correctly. We are people of words, as linguists and as whoever we are here. Words to us, they mean a lot. So let us not allow them to throw us off balance. Yes, we know what we mean when we say it's the 12th official language, but if we just use that unconsciously, it's going to throw us off balance, because it will say a lot even about allocation of resources. So let us please start I've said that many times, you know. Okay, and now I've come to the end of my presentation, and actually of my being a program director here. And colleagues, those who will be leaving early because we can see that some of us are leaving for rushing for their flights, they can please send their names to Sisin Ndima, there is she, so that itin lento ibizwayo prepared, what is it? Don't lento ilunch elungiswayo benzelwe izikhafutina intwana. I've run out of words now. Benzelwe izikhafutina so that lunch packs yeah. Benzelwe lunch packs so that they can have something to eat. Yeah. Thank you very much. Uphi unantsika ubupule. Unantsika who's supposed to take over from me now. I'm done with my part. Oh, Tadmuhap, yeah. You must remove me. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dumelang. Abshe. Molweni. I'm saying Molweni because now there are many mountains in between us in the Eastern Cape, you know. Yes. Goeiemorgen. I'll be the program director for today, the second day of our National Language Stakeholders Forum, Engagement Forum. It's been a great day yesterday, very great day, and I hope that whatever was said there, those who have not complied with the requirements will do so, especially the government departments who have not completed the templates as required. Because, you know, for governance to take place, we all need to do our best so that the public can be well served. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Mr. Sadiki for the summation. Already the previous program director has thanked him. And I'm saying so because I would like to find out if Mr. Dantile is around or not. Is he around? If not so, then I will ask Mr. Sadiki please to assist us to take notes for the summation of today's second day proceedings. I would like to say just one important thing, that, you know, it is important to have a summit because those of you who listen to SONA, you know, State of the Nation address, we don't often hear anything said about language in SONA. Is there anyone who has heard anything about language in SONA? Please lift up your hand and say, in a certain year, I've heard that something has been said about SONA, about language. Anything? Nothing. Because we don't and we have not held any summit. So we need that summit, language summit, for us to be recognized by the politicians. Now, the work of the day. Today, we're going to consider the National Terminology Policy, and we have few people who will be talking about the implementation of the National Terminology Policy and the establishment, of course, the establishment first, and then the implementation later. But the program has changed. If you look at your program there, number 3, that is Professor B. Anisia is not around, so we won't be having her presentation today. But we have now Dr. Lutamo Ramwetsisi, who will be taking the stage. But before that, I would like to introduce him to you so that you know who he is, where he comes from, and expect much from him. Dr. Ramwetsisi is currently employed by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development as Deputy Director. His previous employer was the Department of Arts. I haven't omitted sport. It was the Department of Arts and Culture as a chief language practitioner. And he was also in the financial sector, Conduct Authority as a senior language specialist. Other part-time jobs, he was a lecturer, is he? Yes, jobs now. He was a lecturer at Tshwane University of Technology. Then an external examiner for master's and doctoral theses, University of Johannesburg and Central University of Technology. His qualifications, you can hear he's a doctor, but he started somewhere. He got a BA and a Master's Language Practice, University of the Free State, and a D.Tech Language Practice at Tshwane University of Technology. He published 2 journal articles, that is, towards an enhanced terminology development and management, principles and models. Dr. Lutamo Shadrach Ramwetsisi, the floor is yours. And I would like to give you 10 minutes, sir. No, we change. One thing that is constant is change.
Now, Macheloni. So I have my backup and my backup. So I wanted to be safe. In 2003, I joined the Department of Arts and Culture. I was 30 years old. How old am I now? Yes, I'm almost 60. So why am I saying that? In 2003, there was some sort of a revolution, language revolution, when I joined. And I was very much impressed, which is why I had to study further, because I foresaw a future for us as young language practitioners. So it happened that during that forum or that workshop, there was what we call the National Language Policy Framework, which had an implementation plan with timelines. So all the things that were in that document were supposed to be completed, I think, by 2004. We are here now, but I will get to that. Please go to the first slide. Here is what I'm going to talk about. So since the time is now limited, I timed that for 15 minutes. So, but now it has been trimmed. But I'll try to move faster because my slides don't have too much content. So that is how I'm going to talk today about collaboration, the relevance of collaboration in terminology development. So all of you yesterday, I heard that you are already passionate about collaborating. Some were mentioning it as a complaint to say, we don't know who to talk to, we don't know what to do, but it means we are starting from somewhere. You are ready for collaboration. So let's move to the slides now. Okay, so currently we have got terminology. Terminology is there. since 2003, we have done a lot. We just don't give ourselves credit. We have done a lot. We have collaborated, but is this what we want? Do we think it is enough? So now, efforts were made. The TCS developed a register. There are a few projects that have been registered. And it is difficult sometimes to even see the duplicates or the duplication of terminology projects, because sometimes the naming of the projects, I don't think it is proper, because you'll find Limpopo terminology. So how do you know if Limpopo terminology and Free State terminology are the same, maybe have the same corpus? How do we know? So we should get to that. So the register was there. It was published on the newspapers. People started registering, but some did not. And you'll see when we get forward as to what happened and what it cost. So studies were conducted. There's too much theory out there. People discussing about terminology development, how it should be in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, all those things are there. So this presentation will share the findings regarding collaboration and also some of the recommendations, which are not, of course, prescriptive. These are just suggestions that can help us going forward. So now, I started talking about history. This is how it went. In 1996, the then Minister of Arts and Culture, Ben Ngubane, established what we call the Language Task Group, which was to advise him or his ministry. So that team presented a report, and that report was used to develop the National Language Policy Framework and the implementations plan was there also. That is 1996. 2003, the big event, which I thought it was a revolution, and it was giving us hope. Now, I will quote what he said in that forum, in that workshop. The elevated status of the indigenous languages to official languages and their prescribed use by government means that a concerted effort will be necessary in the development of terminology for the various fields of application. That was 2003. This was mentioned by a minister, a political head. So the NLPF also indicated what we now want to establish, the term bank, in 2003. That was how many years ago? 20 years ago, when I was 30. Now, let's talk about collaboration. What is collaboration? We're doing it every day, maybe even not in terms of terminology, but even in our other areas, we're collaborating because we are bringing together teams or experts for a common purpose. So we need to bring that together. In a family, we also do the same. We'll collaborate, we'll organize. We will organize a funeral in 3 days, and it happens because we are putting our heads together, and then each one is given a role, and then they fulfill their role, and then by the end of the week, then there's an event. So this is what we're supposed to do. So other synonyms there, cooperation, alliance, partnership, you know them. But then in terminology development, collaboration, we can also get the best out of each other because we have got expertise. We know what we're supposed to do. So collaboration requires clear communication. It requires honesty and selflessness. I've seen terminologies here that have been developed, and then you check the cover, there's an author. Is that what a terminology should be? With an author, I sit down, I write a terminology, and then there are people who must read it or use it. How will that work? So selflessness is needed when it comes to this. Okay, why do we collaborate? When we talk about collaboration, already we speak about the reason. You've already seen the reasons thereof. But let me give this example. People fight for turf, and also there's a competition because of financial muscle. An institution, I'll give an example, and this one is a practical one. When I was at the Department of Arts and Culture as a terminologist, I used to invite collaborators. At the same time, the department, Basic Education Department, will be hosting another event, but they paid more. I don't know how, but they were paying. People were getting money, real money. But we only had a sitting fee, and which came later because we were trying at least to get people. So that competition cannot work if we have to collaborate. We have to make sure that we collaborate because after all, we are looking at the same target users. They are translators, they are teachers. Those people need to buy in. So it means if the Department of Education has an opportunity because they own the schools, remember, when they develop that terminology, it will be used in schools. Then you come there with your science and technology terminology from somewhere. You want to impress the schools. They already know, this one. They will gather, they will eat, and they will leave, and they will not use your terminology. But there will be a similarity between the two projects. Now, let's move to the next one. I hope he was moving. When I move here, in my mind, I'm moving also that one. Is it number 4 there? Yo, he's still. Yes. So those are the collaborators. If you don't see yourself there, look at the bottom there. And all the people, and all others. So those are the people who should collaborate. You'd see that I've included ICT specialists. We need them because we need them to create apps, things that the youth will be interested in. Apps, they are needed. I mean, if I'm saying I started 20 years ago, at 30, you know that the apps, I still open a website. Okay. Now, collaboration at language level. We have seen competition at language level. Typical example, everybody is talking about it. Sepedi Sesotho sa Leboa. When I was at the Department of Arts and Culture, I will always say that because this is my home. We would arrange meetings for terminology collaborators. Everything will happen until the last final phase. If the project had moved for a longer time, then the NLB will have changed. So some of the people or members of the developing team will have moved from the NLB. And then the new members will come, they belong to the other group, they will crash everything, and then you find out that you are redeveloping. That is what was happening. So at language level, we need people to agree, to collaborate, to discuss, and then when they come to national, we want one group, one team, which is going to give us the standard. The orthography should have been standardized, and then everything should be in place. That is the language at language level. And then the institutions of higher learning, we know the subjects are named differently. If they're being translated, you'll find political science being called this in another university in isiZulu and so forth. So they need to collaborate also. And then now, currently, they are developers of terminology. Ntate Moapi, I haven't even gotten to that. Okay. So now, a gentleman called Ramwe Zisi did a research in, from 2013 until 2016. So this is what he found. Yes, please go to number 7. I'm not moving. You see this thing of number 7. Okay. So this is what he found. These are the developers, the ones I was talking about, individuals or whoever, but it may be an institution. They will develop on their own. They will do everything on their own without including even other collaborators from other institutions. And they even publish. TCS doesn't know about it. PENSAP doesn't know about it. NLBs don't know about it. I've seen those, but you'll see. I'll just quickly go to the examples. Then number 2, move. These are the developers who develop terminology. They don't register it, but the NLBs accept those terminologies, and then they verify, they authenticate. Then it's the final product. TCS doesn't know about it, remember. They're supposed to be collaborating. Number 3 is the TCS themselves. They will register their project, consult everyone, etc., until the end of the project. Now, the register is there to do what? We have to register our projects so that we don't duplicate. But then, yesterday I saw a register that was demonstrated. There was a section which says pending. I don't know what that stage is in terms of terminology development. But those are the ones that I'm suggesting. Are we on the register there? Yeah. So, is it a new project? Which phase? The register should show that, not pending. And also, we should not see projects in the register. A register is not a term bank. We should see the names and also the profile of the project. That's what I think. And then the NLBs should also have a register, because they should not accept anything unless it comes from the TCS. That is how it should be. Now, there are consequences there. I looked at these 2. I'll end after this one. I'll look at these 2, and then these are the projects that were developed in 2010 for the 2010 Soccer World Cup. This is the Soccer World Cup terminology, soccer terminology, TCS 2010, and also the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture and Creation, Free State, 2010, both of them. Same collaborators, two different teams of collaborators, but both were verified by the NLB, the same NLB. Sesotho, this is what I was looking at. So, now, these are the terms. Move to the number 9. You'll see a table there. Yes. So I just took these few examples. I've got about 50 of those. You'll see the term advantage rule for soccer. Sesotho, arts and culture. Mulawana for rule. The other side, mulao for rule. And then you'll see there's a difference there. Amateur, this one, my tutwana, my tutwane. Same NLB verified that. There are many examples that I can show. Let's move to the next one. Okay. The next one should be parliamentary terminology, ne? Is it? 2005, both of them. Arts and Culture, National TCS, and then Western Cape Provincial Government. You see, the first term, absolute majority. 2 words, 1 word, and then, is it the same? And then the second one, there's some orthography there, where Parliament, and you see what's happening. So, without collaboration, this is what is happening. This is what we get. There are many examples. There are many terminologies that I've looked at. But without collaboration, we are going to create new dialects. We'll end up saying this one is Xhosa from Gauteng, this one is Xhosa from. Of course it will happen, but if we have to collaborate, it will be a very good thing for our languages. Just show one picture there, the next one. Yes, so that picture is the model that we are suggesting for us to move forward. But this one is for existing terminology, because we cannot start a new process. What happens to what is existing? So this one, in summary, is saying we have to take all the terminologies. We have a task team, which is now the steering committee, which is going to look at that, scrutinize, and then whatever is surplus. If there was a project which was bilingual, it means all other languages should be added to that. Then going forward, then we have to start the process from scratch, register, and follow all other processes. But the task team is important, the policy is important with an implementation plan, and also the rest is history. Thank you.
Let's clap hands for the doctor who really illustrated all the problems that we have. Oh, nowadays we say challenges, we don't say problems. All the challenges that we have. You know, it's strange that as he was talking about collaboration, I jotted down the 2010 Soccer World Cup terminologies that came from the Department of Arts and Culture and the Free State, because I speak Sesotho. And I saw the differences there, and he has illustrated them so well that it's amazing that we should have one language having two terms for a concept. It's very strange, and yet the target is the same. So we need that collaboration. For those who don't know what collaboration means, it means co means together and labor means to work together. Well, I'm of the colonial school. Fine. The next speaker will be introduced by Dr. Hatuma Chaba, and that is Mr. Roger Layton. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tate Mohapi, the program director. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture has requested the services of Dr. Roger Layton to assist with the implementation of the development of the National Terminology Policy. Dr. Layton is the CEO of Roger Layton Associates, a consultancy which he started in 1980. He is a computer scientist with a focus on application in heritage, culture, and education. And his PhD is in mathematics education. He has been involved in terminology development for almost 50 years, since his first studies in artificial intelligence and the need to represent knowledge in computer memory. He has been involved with the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture on several projects, including developing the national policy on digitization, the National Art Bank, and in digitization of the archives. In the education area, he works primarily in inclusive education with a focus on children with disabilities and access to education. May we please welcome Dr. Layton and give him a round of applause, colleagues.
Great. Well, thank you. So after that introduction, I think that's it. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to try and turn this around. I've managed to connect. Oh, we've got the same problem they were having yesterday with the thing here. Okay, let's say kindly end. Oh, I mustn't move into sacred tea time, apparently. Yeah. This thing is not meant to go around that way. All I can see is a blank screen here. Ah, there we are. Then there was light. Good. Thank you all. I'm really, really enjoying this workshop. And I will say I've never been to a workshop like this before. I normally go with very boring computer people, and you're much more exciting. Now, I've noticed that all the speakers like to introduce and say hello in about 10 different languages. I can't do that. So, I know about 30 languages. They're all computer languages, unfortunately. Okay, I cannot get this to move on. Let me just try with the mouse, see if the mouse is doing it. No, it's not moving on. We could do that. We've got one little problem, is that part of what I want to do is interactive. I'm going to ask you to give me some information while we're talking, and I'm going to display the results on the screen dynamically as we work. I'm going to do actual polls and surveys as we're discussing it. You know what I'm going to do is, I'm going to switch it off and just switch it back on again. But let me just carry on with the things that I want to talk about anyway. We've been commissioned to develop a national policy on terminology. Now, developing policies is not a big thing for us. It's something that we've done quite a lot over the last 15 years. The challenge is how come I've moved from one discipline to another, from computer science into the language sector. And I don't think I have moved. In fact, my view of terminology work is that this is knowledge work more than language work. We're trying to understand the structure of knowledge in which language is only one manifestation. Let's have a look at my own work in mathematics. A great deal of mathematics is symbols. Now, you'd generally find that in the language disciplines, symbolisms aren't used as much as the words. But yet in mathematics, they're fundamental. But yet I have to create a terminology for mathematics that is primarily symbolic and notational than words. So my view here, and the position I want to take, is that a terminology is the representation of knowledge. And this is where my own knowledge comes in here. I'm not having much luck here. How do I copy it to you? I'm just going to unplug this and see if this is if it's actually a problem with I think it's actually a problem with my computer itself. I think something happened when that cable went in there. And I didn't bring a backup with me. Now that is very embarrassing for a computer person to say. How do I copy this to you? They've got it. How can they project from the back? Huh? Oh, do they want to take my laptop then? Oh, have they? Yeah. Let's let them. Now, because I don't have a backup, for now I'm going to do this without slides and with just a memory of what I've done. Oh, they don't have it? Yeah, you can save it. I'll just make a copy quickly then of that. Yeah. Okay, one of my first questions here is, I just want to get a feeling for who you are. How many of you are language specialists? Okay. How many of you didn't understand that question? Yeah, let me ask that again. How many of you are language specialists? I think the answer is yes. Yes, most of you. How many of you are from the library sector? 1, 2. How many of you from the museum sector? Okay, 1. How many from the archives sector? How many from the computer sciences? Okay. So in effect, a very strong dominance of language, which is what is expected at a language conference, I suppose. But when we're dealing with interdisciplinary subjects, such as has been discussed here and with terminology, we need to broaden the reach of the audience we're speaking to. We can't just say one group sits here and the other group sits there. Now, we go to a lot of conferences. I present at a lot of conferences. I go to archives conferences, libraries, museums, and I never see the same people at these conferences. And I think the work we're doing in terminology in particular is a cross-cutting discipline. It needs input from everybody. So I'm coming in here with a different view. I'm coming in here as a computer scientist. Now, you might have heard a very strange thing that happened when I was introduced. 50 years experience in terminology. How can that be? As you can see, I'm only 35 years old. What? It's just switching on now. I'll just do that quickly. If you just hold on 1 minute. Just talk among yourselves.
No, let me talk. Let me talk in the meantime. Okay. Yes, there is an emergency. Please pay attention. There are 2 cars which are obstructing the way, and the owner of a car would like to drive out. The following cars should please be attended to and be driven out of the way. This is RNS 179GP. It's a Chevrolet Aveo Gold. It's goldish. And the second one, it's a Mercedes-Benz white HV11WP GP. Should I repeat that? RNS 179GP Chevrolet Aveo Gold, Mercedes-Benz white HV11WP GP. Please attend to those 2 cars. 1 of 2 people, please. Drivers. Nobody's shaking. Oh, there we are. Thank you. Are you making it? Whilst we are still working on this, immediately after Dr. Layton's presentation, we will have a tea time and come back. We'll see what the time will be.
Thank you. I'm just going to tell you, firstly, I wanted to find out who you are. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I am and where I come from, and why I'm saying I've been in this discipline for 50 years. I started studying computer sciences in 1970. That was when I went to university. I did my honors based in artificial intelligence in 1974. And one of the subjects we were dealing with was artificial intelligence. I then did my master's a few years later, specifically in the area of artificial intelligence. My particular focus in artificial intelligence is knowledge representation. How do we represent human knowledge in computer memory? And one big aspect of that is how do we deal with the multitude of words and meanings that exist and structure those? So from that point on, I had a strong belief that knowledge needs to be structured, and I wasn't necessarily using the word terminologies in those days. I was using the words thesauri or vocabularies or even things like pick lists. But for me, these all now seem to be under the general heading of terminology as the generic term that covers all different types of the way that knowledge is structured. I was very clear. Where do I press to move on? Good. Good. I was going to say how to say hello. I've just said hello to you here. Now, who can tell me what language I'm in? Anybody got a suggestion? Huh? English? No. What? Esperanto. What is Esperanto? It was designed 140 years ago or so as the universal second language for humanity. Not the first language, which is the ones you're dealing with, the second language. So that everybody would have a common second language that they could speak throughout the world. It is Eurocentric. It doesn't deal with a lot of the indigenous languages here, with the Arabic, with the Chinese, with many of the others. But it was the best attempt I've seen, and certainly the purest language. I started learning it many years ago, and then I gave up because, as I mentioned, I'm not very good at natural language, which is a very embarrassing thing to say now that I'm here. Let's move on. So I've been through this. Let's move on. So let's have a look at why we're here. I'm talking about the challenges that have been given to us as the starting point for the study. Now, I'm looking at this as a study as opposed to knowing the answers in advance. If you knew what you wanted in a policy, I wouldn't be here. But here is the question. Firstly, there are some problems, and those problems need a systemic intervention across the board that everybody can agree with. Guidance for terminology developers and a methodology. Coordination of efforts, such as we've just heard about collaboration. Avoiding duplication of efforts. And ensuring no official language is left behind, which is clearly the work I've heard yesterday. And also our focus on special purpose languages rather than general purpose. And that's an important one. And everything here, domain-specific words and meanings and concepts that exist. Let's move on. So I'm just going to go through it. Now, I tried to make all of my slides so that the top right-hand corner was it. So I went through and amended them all last night to try and make a little block on the top right there. Wasn't quite successful. Draft a policy that will provide an overall profile of the terminology development needs. So informed by two things, the National Policy Development Framework, which I'm going to take you through. Because a big question we've got to ask is, well, what is a policy? Everybody talks about policy this and policy that. What is a policy, and what is a policy intended to achieve compared to other instruments that government has got at its disposal? And SEIAS, Socio-Economic Impact Assessment System. Policies don't just go and get accepted. They have to go through an approval process. And the approval process means evaluation against the socio-economic imperatives, including, as the Director General said yesterday, poverty, unemployment, and I always forget the third one, job creation. So those are the three main imperatives. Also, a policy that will be a comparative benchmark study with all stakeholders and collaborators involved in terminology development. Now, the one starting point for me was to actually look internationally. Has anybody done similar things like this before? And I actually have struggled to find international studies and work that has been done on a national policy on terminology. It might be that this is a unique global contribution here, and that's what I'm hoping for. It's always nice where a relatively small country like South Africa can suddenly position itself in leadership position in something. And one of the reasons why that would be good is that we are so far behind in basic literacy and numeracy. Wouldn't it be nice if we can move ahead in other areas? Let's move on. Produce a summary of engagement. It just means if I talk to you, I've got to write it down. That's the easy bit. Okay, and that's what I'm doing now. Now, that's why I wanted this interactive. I had hoped for a much more interactive scenario where we could run a workshop with all of you, put you in commissions, get you to discuss things. But I'm going to come back and knock on your door later, either through focus groups or through other methods, because I want to ask you all a lot of detailed questions that I can't do now. Also aligned to the Constitution. And we're going to find that much of the prior writing in the field has already addressed that issue very well. I think we know where we are from a constitutional perspective here. Let's move on. Next one. Submit a budget. Now, this is where I'm saying that if we're going to do a policy, government doesn't just accept policies. When I say government here, it is typically cabinet is the entry point for the approval process. They've stopped accepting open-ended discussions and open-ended policies because they don't know what the fiscal impact is going to be, and do they have any money for it. When we do a costing process, which we might do here, we might not do, is we often put it down under 3 levels, what we call the low road, the middle road, and the high road, depending upon how much government is willing to put into the process. Follow relevant policy and legislative documents, and here I've done quite an extensive review on prior work, and especially some of the ISO standards. Okay, let's move on. Be able to apply qualitative and quantitative analysis. And for this, I've created an analytical framework, which I want to show you now, is how I propose to go through the process. How many of you, just show of hands, filled in our online questionnaire? Okay. I'm going to be, what I really would like to do is have a look at how we can get the rest of you who are relevant in the terminology space to also complete that, and I'll be putting up a link just now for you to do it. How on earth are you going to get a link from the screen? Well, you will see. This is why it's nice to be a computer scientist sometimes. I'm going to be looking at a model called the theory of change. Some of you have probably worked with the theory of change models before, and it isn't a theory of change or the theory of change. It is adapted to understand, it's a framework to understand a situation in which change is necessary. And the first thing we ask is, are you okay with your terminology work at the moment? I'm guessing the answer is no, otherwise, why am I here? Because the answer is yes, that there is a problem, now we're going to find out what is the problem. We can't make assumptions. And you find out anybody you speak to about any subject, everybody's got an opinion. What is the problem? What's the solution? And you're probably all wrong. Okay. We've got to find out what is right. What is the consensus so that we can all agree on that? And there will be points of debate, points of dissension. In fact, I would be very surprised if any of you agree with each other on what the problems and what the solutions are. In fact, if any of you do agree, we only need one of you, because we need as many opinions as we can get. Let's move on. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am and how I got to this position. As I said, I am a computer scientist. My big focus is digital transformation. How do we move from the physical space, printed dictionaries, for example, to the digital space? It's our generation's responsibility to do this. This is what we are here for, is this transition. We're applying it 4 areas, which is in the arts, culture, and heritage, and also in inclusive education. These are the focus areas, and more now, we're bringing all of those together under a single model to support a new model for education. I'm not a language specialist, and I'm really hoping all of you are. Let's move on. Started my journey. 50 years ago, when we got involved, we actually said to ourselves, you know, we think these problems are so big, they're going to take 50 years to solve. And as I was preparing for this, I just realized our 50 years are up. And now we see the emergence of ChatGPT, of DALL-E to drawing pictures. And we've seen how this is immersing our world. I lectured at WITS for many years, and my challenge was, how can a robot understand language? Because the words have got different meanings in different contexts. What do we have to do so that the robot would understand? Let's move on. Now, I've started putting it into our work in museums, which spans about the last 20 years. Museums are very interesting places. They are the home of all human knowledge, all knowledge of the natural world. In effect, they cover everything. And there are so much need for vocabularies and terminologies in this that they cover all of the world's knowledge. So that was my starting point. What can we do to resolve that problem so that museums can talk to one another in the same language? And that was the problem I started looking at. Also, digital repositories. How do we keep the digital repositories alive for 50 years or more? And that's a difficult question. And also, I designed a collaborative framework for this. How do people from different areas talk to one another and evolve it? I make one big assumption. Terminology work is never finished. It's always an ongoing discipline. We're always learning more, and we're learning more from each other. We're learning as our knowledge increases, as our ideas increase, and as the external world changes. Let's move on. So I've been developing a terminology for mathematics for about 20 years now to try and this is a symbolic terminology rather than a word terminology. It does talk about words, but it's very much based upon symbols used in different ways. Also, I actually happen to have developed a terminology management system many years ago as well, about 15 years ago, but I never really developed it. But why I'm here, I've got a passion for this. I believe this is a very important thing, and at my age, I only like doing what I like doing. So now let's get on to something else. Let's move on. One of the things I have done over the years is called for national vocabularies. I've made this call 3 times. In 2007, with work with Sarah, responsible for heritage resources, also in the draft policy on digitization, and in the one that has now been approved, it has got a funded mandate, part of which is to develop national vocabularies. And I very much would like to include that into this work. So part of what I'm saying is, who am I? Probably you're saying, as a computer scientist, what am I doing up here? And I'm hoping I'm telling you why I believe this is a highly relevant problem that spans everything. Let's move on now. So, where are we now? Our project is divided into multiple stages. We're currently in stage 2, into the research. Now, I had wanted to do a lot of work prior to this, but this date had been set, and so this is a very fundamental day for us to be able to start a much more deeper engagement with the work. So we haven't done much engagement prior to that, except me sending out the survey, and the survey was on the status of terminology. From there, we move on to the draft policy during November, December, again following a second stakeholder consultation, which might be virtual in nature, we don't know yet. But if you like the food here, let's see what we can arrange. And then the final one in around about January, February. So let's move on now to find out what is a policy. Policy development is identified in the National Policy Development Framework as the codification of practice and processes, and also answering the question, what are the principles for effective policy development and implementation? Now here's one of the challenges. Government has got far too many good policies. I would put South Africa very high up on the ability to develop policies. but unfortunately not so good in the implementation of those same policies. And this is where the gap is. So the question I'm asking, when we develop the policy and with your engagement, can we already put in the seeds to enable very quick implementation? That's what I'm looking for here. And that might be moving away any of the barriers that prevent implementation right from the start. Do you agree with that? Okay, so that's my focus here. I don't just want to put out a document. I want to put out a call to action tomorrow. In fact, even better, a call to action yesterday. Will it be implemented, and what can be done? Okay, so let's move on from that. Let's have a look at the policy instruments provided, because even though there is a document called the National Policy Development Framework, it uses the word policy in two ways in the same document. Now, you will know, as language specialists, that words often have got two meanings in two different contexts. Here we've got two meanings in the same context. At the generic, the policy covers any utterance that government does to make a change in society. Below that, its more restrictive meaning is in terms of an actual policy document. Here is the flow, a green paper to white paper. These are much more broader instruments. Then to a policy, which is where we are now. Then, if it is needed, moving on to the bill, the act, and the regulation. Then becomes enforceable. Then it becomes a true legal instrument. Now, we're far from that process right now. But let's have a look at the, I've forgotten what it's called now, the Use of Languages Act. The one that we heard about, which is not being enforced as it should. UALA, yeah. Now, that enforcement issue can only be done at the level of an act. It cannot be done at the level of a policy. At a policy, it is more a recommendation, but it cannot be forced. So I want to look at what are the mechanisms that can be used to make sure it works even though you're not forced to do it. It says public policy is important. It's the statement of intent and an expression of political mandate and must include a clear vision statement. Policy is a response to a societal problem. And that's where we are right now. We're doing this because society needs this. Let's move on. Now, this is a picture out of the National Policy Development Framework, and it talks about the 4 phases of it. Now, we've done work in all, well, 3 of these 4 phases. Policy formulation is where we are and where this problem is. We're starting with a problem, and we want to end up with a policy. Once that is done, the department takes it to the next stage, makes sure it gets to cabinet and gets approved, and that's policy adoption. Policy implementation is then how this is implemented. Now, we have to, when we formulate the problem, also anticipate the implementation that is going to be done. So we'll be putting an implementation plan in place. Now, I know that one of the topics is a national terminology register, and we've already seen yesterday an example of how one has been built already. But at least that is a starting point. It might be that we start putting additional criteria on what is a good register to inform that process further. Then we move into policy evaluation, which we cannot do yet because there is no policy, and then it cycles around again. This is how the world works, and I like that document. I would say that National Policy Development Framework is one of the best documents I've ever seen coming out of the government structures. Because for the first time, we've been developing policies for 16, 17 years. It's the first time I've got guidance that makes sense to me. Let's move on. So let's have a look at the stakeholders now. Now, the policy framework recommends that there are, I've got some competition here, that there are 2 levels of analysis of stakeholders. The first one is at the level of power. Power are the people who control resources and can determine where the resources are allocated. The next one is at the level of interest. Now, we just need to understand that mechanism, because it's going to be quite a different thing of how we deal with stakeholders depending upon their power structures, how powerful are they, and how important is this to them. It's just something that we do for an analysis. Nice for you to see where do you fit. Let's move on. Okay. How many of you have got phones here? Just see if you can just do this. I just want to take a quick poll on this. I just want to know, and I'm really just testing this, are you a policy maker or a terminology maker or a terminology user? Now I'm switching on my phone so that I can see the results of this. It's only one question, I think. It should be a little, have you got it there? Didn't it come up? Okay. The questions aren't. Yeah, have you got that? Tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to report back on this at the end. But if you've got a chance to just have a look, Lee, and I do this online through Teams and through others. Now, I want to talk about the theory of change model I've put together, and this is where I'm going to start to need your help. So when we say stakeholder engagement, you maybe thought you weren't going to have to do anything. Now comes your job. To problems that we've noted. Here are some of the problems that I've identified so far from the